be chatting about. Right, okay. So, yeah, hopefully everyone's had a good day so far. We've raised a little bit of money for charity, which is excellent, and that's what we're all here for as well. It's all black bond and just a chance to get everyone together, especially the people that worked on the films as well, to have that opportunity to come together. It doesn't happen often, so yeah, just glad we can make it happen. Okay, so we've got in the director's chair with Glen, so we've got a Q&A. Well, first off, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about The Spy Who Loved Me, because this is where your career really literally went off with Rick Sylvester.
Literally went off the cliff. If everyone remembers the film, and I'm sure they do, it opens with a brilliant, even though modestly speaking, I shot it myself, a ski chase and a shot of Rick Sylvester skiing off this cliff. It was 7,500 feet drop, and he went off on skis. And I did a lot of research on what would happen, and what I didn't realise, well, I eventually realised when I spoke to Rick, is that once he went off, the skis would act like a parachute and would invert him, and that wasn't what James Bond should look like, upside down, out of control. So it took a lot of research, and we only ever had one opportunity. I was there for just over 3 weeks up on the Arctic Circle. We had one day when we had an opportunity to shoot that scene, and we did it once, take one. Although he was contracted for 2 jumps for quite a lot of money, but not when you consider what impact it had on the film. It was $25,000 or something. And he supplied an assistant. You know, we weren't mountaineers, we were studio guys. We had to climb up this slope, and I said to him, he cut some steps in the ice going up this mountain. And I said to him, do you think we could have a rope or something to hang on to? Because, you know, I haven't really got much of a head for heights. In fact, I used to have an aversion to heights. And when you look down, you're 7,500 feet above the glacier. But the thing that you're on white and it's white down below, and it's until the helicopter flies past 2,000 feet below you, you realise how high up you are. And it's a bit scary, I'll tell you. So I went up with a load, about 5 of us studio guys, and we went up to shoot that sequence. And Rick Sylvester, I must say, he was the least looking guy you could ever imagine playing James Bond. He was 5'6" or 7 at the most, and bespectacled, very, very quiet guy, the last person you think would be a daring dude. And when it came to it, the guy was made of steel. It was quite amazing, the nerve he had. And as I say, we only ever had one opportunity to shoot that. And when we halfway through that shot, if you look at it in slow motion, you see that in fact he jettisons his skis. We had to put a special device on so he could get the skis, otherwise he'd have been turned upside down. And when he eventually went into free fall, he eventually pulled his parachute, the Union Jack, which was terrific. And when he let the ski that he jettisoned caught up with him and actually nearly brained him as he went down. So that was a nasty moment I hadn't thought about. So we picked him up with the helicopter when he landed, and there was one of the skis was broken in half lying beside him. And we brought him back up onto the top of the mountain, and the first thing he did was pull his trousers down and crapped in the snow. I was surprised. But he was a wonderful guy and very modest. It was the first time really that he performed that stunt as well, you know, because he'd done it. Watched a similar stunt he did in California, and he went down like a sack of potatoes. It looked terrible. You know, it wouldn't work for a Bond film. But that was The Spy Who Loved Me, which was the first film that Cubby Broccoli produced on its own without Harry Saltzman. And there had been an interval of about 4 or 5 years since the last Bond, and it was really important that this film worked.
Yeah.
And Roger Moore, the first shot that we did on the movie was that jump. It cost $250,000 to do that one shot, and it was worth every penny.
Yeah, and another thing about that film as well, just shooting that, was it true that obviously there was a lot of mathematical work out. You had a neighbour that was very good at maths, so he worked out the velocity and the rate of going down. Is it true that you threw toilet rolls on to see what way the wind's going to blow?
Yeah, absolutely. We did a recce earlier, a feasibility study really, and Rick, armed with toilet rolls, was throwing them off the top of the mountain, and we were gauging the wind speed and where the toilet rolls, when they are unwound, would hit the slope. And of course, the slope was facing north, so the winds were coming straight down from the North Pole, and if the winds were more than 3 miles an hour, we had a problem. He would have been blown back into the mountain, and we didn't have a rope long enough, or I don't know how we'd ever got him down if his parachute had got put up on that slope.
Yeah. And he's, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people share the same belief, that it's probably the greatest stunt filmed in film history. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's the most iconic stunt from the James Bond film, Union Jack, and the way it was done in one take. You only had, was it 1 camera, 3 cameras up there, but 1 camera shot it?
We had 3 cameras. There was my camera, which was it was a perfect place to shoot from. It was a horseshoe shape, and we were able to get an uninterrupted view all the way down from the top to the very bottom. So that was the key camera. And you know, you hear these terrible stories like Bridge on the River Kwai, when they had the train coming over and there was a miscommunication and the cameras weren't turning when the train went over the bridge and fell down in the ravine, and they had to rebuild it all and bring more trains in. It could only happen on a David Lean picture. And I worked with a lot of the people who were on that shoot, and they told me, so I was very careful that there was no misunderstanding. Let's think, at that time, radios weren't very reliable. So I didn't rely on a radio. Rick had a radio in his thing, but I said, you mustn't rely on it. I said, I'll have a red flag, and all the time you can see the red flag, don't go. And when I said, it's ready, stand by to go, I buried the red flag in the snow so he couldn't see it. I was wearing a white suit, so were the rest of the crew. And then I said, go. And it was important that everything went, because we were shooting at 72 frames a second, which is 3 times normal speed. And so we'd run out of film very quickly. I mean, it means the camera, obviously most of you know, the camera is running very fast, and it gives you slow motion. And as there was nothing else to relate to, you couldn't tell that it was slow motion. It looked real. And the first camera, Alan Hume was in the helicopter, and he was shooting from the heli, so I had to keep in radio contact with him. So we had 3 cameras, and the second camera was below the ledge. My idea was I'd get a shotgun going over the top of the camera and going down. As it transpired, he didn't get anything. All he got was a shot of his boots, and that wasn't very good. So discount that. So basically we had 2 cameras. Alan in the helicopter camera got the initial approach to the ledge where he went off the edge. He got that, and then the helicopter pilot put the stick out, and the helicopter went into free fall, and then he re-engaged the rotor, and by some miracle he was right. Rick was right in the middle of frame. It was unbelievable. It was so we had a lot of luck going for us as well, which you need. And anyway, we had no communications. We had no telephones up there on the Arctic Circle, so we sent a guy off to the lab in Canada, and he was sent a radio message to us when he saw the rushes the next day, and he had some doubt about a certain part of the shot where the camera operator leant forward because he thought he hadn't zoomed in tight enough, and it rather shook the camera and shook the shot a bit, so there was slight doubt about it. But he said, Rennie Dupont, who was watching the shot, he said to me, that's a fantastic shot. He said, but something's happened. It's gone a little bit funny, but it's come back again. It's all right now. He said. So I thought, oh dear. So I said, it's going to be okay. He said, yeah, I think it'll be okay. And what saved us was the fact we were shooting at 3 times normal speed. So a normal shape would have been terrible, but 3 times normal speed, it smoothed it out a bit so it didn't look bad. So when next time you see that shot, bear in mind that it nearly went all wrong there and then. But I think the most important thing on that shoot was we were 3 of us. Sorry, there were 5 or 6 of us from England, and we were living in this sort of wooden shack hotel. The kids played all night up there because it never got dark. The sun just spins around the horizon all day and night. And all the Eskimo kids used to play in the street all night, 3 o'clock in the morning, they were shouting and screaming. So we couldn't sleep. And one of the crew got friendly with a local trapper and they drank rather too much. And I was a bit worried about him. And I just kept watching him. I'm wondering whether he'd perform on the day. Everyone did, but as I say, he did just about. He was responsible for the shaking camera. But there you go. It all worked out. And the rest of the sequence, I shot him off just in the mountains above St. Moritz in Switzerland with Willy Bogner. We shot the rest of the chase sequence there. Shot it in about 2 or 3 days. But even that had its problems because there was not an avalanche, but there was a huge snowstorm, and we got wiped out. We had 30 people on the slope, and we had 2 helicopters, and we couldn't get everyone out. And I went out on the last helicopter. The remaining crew was Swiss people used to the snow, and they built an igloo and stayed the night in the middle of this storm in a snow house that they built. And we took off in the last helicopter out, and it was quite terrifying because all the snowflakes were like snowballs. They were huge size, and they were just beating against the windscreen of the helicopter. And we tried to go one way and couldn't, and it turned back, then another way, and about the 5th one we went there. We managed to get through, and we eventually finished up in Italy somewhere, in Switzerland, and we landed in a lunatic asylum, which is quite appropriate. And all the lunatics were hanging out the window, shouting and screaming at us. Ed, the guy that doubled for Bond, did the helicopter turn and whatever. The stunt. He was a world champion stunt skier, and he got so frightened we had to leave him in this hospital, in this lunatic asylum. While we went back on the train to St. Moritz, and he stayed there till the next day, and then we went and retrieved him. But he was wearing that yellow suit, that yellow ski suit, and his face was green. It's an unusual combination.
Oh, fantastic, terrific. Right, what we're going to do now, we're going to get out Tony Way and Terry Madden. Just talk about their time working with you, John, as fellow assistant directors, and you were at the time one of them.
All right.
So if you can just, welcome them guys up.